But let's guide you through the grid then, as they head off on the formation lap. This is based on the times that they set over the course of qualifying this morning, and on pole position it's Michael Rawlings that qualified on pole position, and it's the Colin Tester and James Rowling car that lines up alongside. Row 2 of the grid is Paul McHugh, and we know that number 70 is going to be started the Honda by Nicole Drought. The third row of the grid, on the inside of the third row, it is the Jack Wright and Matt Allett Porsche, and that lines up alongside the number 41 David Zakchevsky BMW. And then as we move on to the next row of the grid, it will be the car of 37, which is Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart, alongside number 88, which is Damien Shepchalski. The fifth row of the grid is the Louis Harvey and Oliver Richardson Renault Clio. That lines up alongside Sarah Hobson's Toyota, and then it's Trevor Hurrell and Cameron McLean that are on the next row of the grid. Row 7 of the grid, Wayne Cockrell lines up alongside Howard Hunt, and then it's Robert Quantrill and Neil Bullen that are next up. Neil at the wheel of one of a couple of Ginettas we've got over the course of the field. Then on to row number 9, that's where we see William Lynch and Colin Wells in his Mazda, alongside Ben Jenkins at the wheel of one of the newer gen Renault Clios, and for company he's got Ben Curran on the outside of that 10th row of the grid. The 11th row of the grid, it's Martin and Rob Adams, father and son. They line up alongside James Burnham and Ben Voach, who had a race yesterday in their Ford Fiesta. And then it's another father and son pairing, Gary Duckman, a former Dunlop Production touring car champion in the UK, alongside his 16-year-old son having his first ever race. Lewis Duckman will take over that car. George Wright is next up with Simon Morris, showing the car from him as they line up on row number 12 and row number 13. It is Tommy Valentine, who is partnered up with Costa Kriatsis. Ollie Moss will join them alongside, and then it is Stephen Arant, whose brother Michael Arant has been racing in a McLaren GT4 car here this weekend in GT Cup. Jack Fuller sits alongside on the 14th row of the grid. Row 15 of the grid, it is going to be Jack Stewart and Tom Pugh that share alongside Andy Burton, and the final row of the grid is the Mike Fletcher and Alec Langston shared Mazda alongside Sam Beard, who sits there and is next up. And then we've got two cars that have been put to the back of the grid, which is number 66 Richard Clark and 82, which is Dave Griffiths. So they start off the back of the grid, a couple of rows behind everybody else, and it may well be that they start 10 seconds delayed. There's no obvious signs of that being printed on the grid sheet, but usually if you get a couple of rows gap, there's a reason for that. So we'll wait and see as to whether the Renault Clio and the Ginetta G20 get held a little bit. So, say the pit window is between the 15th and 30th minute of the race. The car on the outside of the front row of the grid, the number 91 Porsche, had problems yesterday with oil leaking down onto the exhaust, which caused its retirement from a top 6 position in the MSVT Trackday Championship. That's been fixed overnight, talking to Colin Tester earlier on today. Red lights on, red lights go off now, and the rear-wheel drive, rear-engine Porsche initially gets the jump on Michael Rawlings, heading down in towards Redgate Corner for the first time. Can the Beamer fight back on the brakes because it's got the inside line? The answer is no, it can't. So it is the Colin Tester James Rowling Porsche Boxster that is leading the way through Redgate Corner, and it will be the BMW of Michael Rawlings that slots itself into second place by the look of things. We'll pick up on who is in third at the moment. That looks as though it is going to be the Jack Wright and Matt Allett Porsche 944 that's there in third position. Fourth is Paul McHugh. Fifth is going to be the Semprini Racing Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart Honda, and Nicole Drought has dropped down towards the bottom of the top 6 as things currently stand. Keep an eye on what's going on in the individual classes as well as the race wears on, but the front two just sort of stretching their legs a little bit and trying to get away in the early stages of it. Huge grid of cars, so the front of it is already exiting Coppice, the tail end of it is only just coming up towards McLean's Corner, which includes at the back of it the Ginetta that started off the very tail end of the field, David Griffiths, who was a late entry and a late addition onto the entry list. But it's Porsche from Beamer from Porsche, Boxster from 3 Series from 944 for the lead of the race. And it's the Hondas that are doing battle next, the 2 Civics together as well, so that will be Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart's blue Honda Civic Type R fighting away with the number 70 car of Nicole Drought. And they'll be squabbling over, I think, what will be 6th and 7th places. Yeah, here they come, the blue car on the inside line going in towards Redgate, Nicole Drought on the outside line. Nicole, who is from Tipperary and is one of Ireland's top female racing drivers, has done a chunk of things over the years as well, so it's not just circuit racing, she's done rallying and rallycross and other things as well, auto testing, but she's sitting there behind Semprini Racing Honda, and right behind her is the Pro-Am Renault Clio by the look of things that had an outing yesterday. That will be Louis Harvey and Oliver Richardson's Renault Clio. It's only very slow coming out of Redgate Corner there. But front of the field, squabbles going on everywhere. Now this is right towards the sharp end. This is the car of Paul McHugh that you can see there, the Honda Civic. Right behind him was David Zakchevsky's BMW. Zakchevsky in the Dub Shack livery car, who again has been racing in the MSVT Trackday Trophy for a good number of years now. So the newer shape Honda having a battle with the BMW, the two slightly older shape Honda Civics sitting behind. But at the moment it's still just about Paul McHugh that hangs on to 4th position, and David Zakchevsky still sitting there in 5th place at the wheel of the Beamer. In a straight line, can he do anything about it? No, I don't think he can. And in the background, looks like Nicole Drought is weaving around with her lights ablaze at the wheel of her Honda, trying to put the Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart car under pressure. She's diving for the inside line in towards Redgate Corner. There could be a swap there. To wait and see as to whether she made that stick or not. Also need to keep an eye on what's going on in the classes. It looks like she's just about made it stick. Saprini Racing are not giving up though. And finally, yeah, Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart's car just about hangs on to the place. So they still remain in 6th position. And despite the very best efforts of Nicole Drought, she's there in 7th place once more. You've got, say, the Pro-Am Racing Renault Clio sitting behind, which is the number 12 car of Louis Harvey and Oliver Richardson. It's poised and ready to pounce should the Hondas hold each other up too much further. And just off that is going to be Trevor Hurrell at the wheel of his Honda Civic Type R. To see as though Hondas and Renaults are very popular in this, and that's a problem. That's a number 25 car that's grinding to a halt. So that's the Green Star Racing Ford Fiesta that James Burnham shares with Ben Vos. That's, I'm afraid, ground to a halt, and in the background of the shot someone else is destined for the pit lane as well. Can't quite tell who that was that came into the pit lane there. For the lead of the race, it's the number 4 Renault Clio that came into the pit lane, which will be Ollie Moss if that's the case. Car that's out front leading the way. Just the way it's driving, I would say it's probably Colin Tester that started behind the wheel of that, and James Rowling scheduled to take over. That's just me trying to look at the body language of the car and work out as to who it is. Colin Tester, I think I'm going to go for that one, because it just looks as though Colin, who's got a lot of experience in this car, is driving it exactly as you would expect him to, whereas for James Rowling, less experience in the Porsche. Yeah, confirmation it was the number 4 car that came into the pit lane, so Ollie Moss into the pit lane. Pit window won't open yet, another 5 minutes before the pit window, another 10 minutes before the pit window opens, so this is an unscheduled pit stop for some sort of mechanical issue, so he, by the look of things, is going to be out of the race. Right, we've had a shuffle, haven't we, on that lap, because all of a sudden David Zakchevsky has managed to go through into 4th place. That's through and ahead of the number 39 newer shaped Paul McHugh Honda Civic, which is now dropping into the clutches of the older shape cars. Elsewhere down through the order we've got the likes of the MG as well. That's Howard Hunt at wheel of his Rover 45, I want to say, to be absolutely correct, and then just behind that is number 80, which is going to be Gary Duckman. Now we've still got the battle of the 2 Honda Civic Type Rs going on. The blue and green Semprini Racing car still coming under pressure from the Motion Motorsport car of Nicole Drought. She can't quite squeeze her way through there, so not for want of trying, Nicole, who we've seen in the past claim wins in the likes of Enduro KA. She finished 2nd overall in one of the Trackday Trophy races, Trackday Championship races last year. She's had class wins in Club Sport Enduro, which is another club that run that one, not MSVR or MSVT that we're with this weekend. She's been very, very successful, and has also had the opportunity to drive some fantastic other machinery as well. A couple of Formula 1 cars she's been driving, including the likes of a March and a 1993 Benetton. Right, Andy Burton's getting involved here as well in the Burton-powered Ford Focus, fighting away with the Mark IV Mazda MX-5 that he's trying to draw himself alongside. This is going to be for a long way down through the order. Andy Burton's running in 26th position at the moment. I think it's the number 68 Mazda that he had been doing battle with. That's into the pit lane with the bonnet up now, the car that faltered at pit lane exit end. Green Star Racing. Hopefully, if the bonnet's up and they're working on it still, we might be able to see James Byrne and Ben Vos back out at some point. So Andy Burton at the wheel of the Ford Focus, got Ginetta behind him squabbling away. Then there's the car that came off the back of the grid, which is Sam Beard, who's managing to trim a bit of time out the car. There's also a good fight going on between the two Toyota Celicas I just spotted there. That will be Sarah Hobson, who is in 11th position in the white car with the yellow flashes to it, and she's got Wayne Cockrell right behind her. They're just behind this little trio that we've got here. And all of these are fighting over at the moment 7th, 8th and 9th place, and there is the squabble of the two Toyotas actually, so very evenly matched, Sarah Hobson. Wayne Cockrell we saw out racing yesterday in the Trackday Championship. The pair of those two were separated by 0.4 of a second as they came over the start-finish line, and through the first sector it looks as though that's probably closed up even further. Burton at the wheel of his Ford Focus is having a nibble, trying to get up the inside of the Jack Stewart and Tom Pugh Mazda MX-5 Mark 1, but he tries to make that stick, and in the meantime then loses ground and loses a place to the Ginetta G20 of David Griffiths, who had drawn himself alongside. Andy Burton sorts that out to make sure he goes back through, and all of this whilst our front runners are still trying to dive their way through the order. Now we have had, I think, a bit of a shuffle there, have we? Because we've got David Zapchevsky trying to fight his way through this traffic here, which means that he has now dropped down into 12th position, so he's had some problems. In fact, make that 13th, 14th, he's tumbling down through the order. He has been into the pits for something, but the window hasn't opened as yet, so he's going to have to come back in at some point. So Zapchevsky is, I think, by the time he's rejoined, going to be outside of the top 20. But the BMW will look to keep pressing on. We've also now got a fight going on between Paul McHugh and Nicole Drought. So Nicole Drought at the wheel of the number 70 Mission Motorsport car, pushing hard. She's already gone through and past Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart's Semprini racing machine, and now she's right on the coattails of the next car and into the gravel trap. I'm afraid we've lost Sam Beard, so you're not going to get that car out of there, Sam, I'm afraid. If you don't dig it in much further, the marshals might be able to give you a shove, but if you get it axle deep, have one go at it, and when the wheels start spinning, stop, because all you're going to do is dig the car further in. The marshals will try and give you a shove. You might be able to rejoin the race, but if you dig it in that far, then you're definitely going to lose more time, because you'll be awaiting for a telehandler to come and get you. So we may well have a safety car. Nicole Drought looking for the opportunity to try and dive up the inside of Paul McHugh, who just about got it covered off at the wheel of the newer shape Honda, and he got it covered off just as the safety car comes out. So you can see the marshals with the safety car boards. That's going to bunch them all up. Ideally, we need to clear this incident in the next 5 minutes, because if we don't, then it means the pit window opens in reality. Just double checking, yeah, pit stops were made between the 15th and the 30th minute of the race. That was the regulations for last year. The regulations for this year I couldn't find on the website, so we'll dig those out for future events. And we've got one car in the pit lane, and it was a front runner. It was running in 3rd place. It was Jack Wright that was driving it by the look of things, because his crash helmet is still on, and it looks as though the Team Air Supply Porsche 944 in the hands of the auctionman has got a little bit warm under the bonnet. So I don't think that I should say that Matt Allett is going to get the opportunity to drive that car. So Jack Wright out of the car. His father George Wright in this race as well, but George is driving something slightly more conventional, a Citroen Saxo, the number 58 car that he shares with Simon Morris. So stricken in the gravel, going nowhere, Sam Beard. Front wheels pretty much axle deep, so that will bunch the pack up. The clock still continues to tick, and in theory now we have had, by the look of things, a change for the lead had happened, because it's now showing as no longer being the 91 Porsche that was in the lead. It's showing as now being Michael Rawlings that's in the lead. But I think that was probably just as they came over the start-finish line as the safety car boards were coming out, and therefore the positions have been adjusted again to suit, as one driver maybe reacted to the safety car coming out quicker than the other. But where has that BMW gone? Did Michael Rawlings have a problem? Because you would expect him to be right where the Porsche is of Colin Tester and James Rowling. There it is, right, okay, so there it is now. But why is he down there is the big question. So over the start finish line, all looks fine with the car, but he is a long way back in the train. Or did he not get caught by the safety car? So safety car is there. Yeah, right, okay. So the BMW is, I think the safety car didn't quite get out in time, or Michael Rawlings has gone past the safety car. I don't know, but it looks as though he's almost at the back of the safety car queue, when arguably he ought to be at the front of the safety car queue, so they might have to wave everybody by. And I was talking about, you know, if you spin and go into the gravel, try getting out the gravel once, but then leave it, otherwise you just dig yourself deeper. If that Ford Fiesta had have been just sitting on the top of the gravel, the marshals might have been able to push it out, because it looks like the rear wheels of it are almost on the tarmac. But because Sam Beard had several attempts at trying to get it out, the marshals can't even attempt to push it. Too deep into the gravel now, so the telehandler has to come out, which means that you lose even more time whilst you're sitting in the gravel, and even more time is lost for everybody else whilst they sit behind the safety car. So telehandler attached, Ford Fiesta being dragged out, which I would imagine is one of the Ford Fiestas that harks back to the Fiesta Challenge that we used to have within the UK, which was always a support package to the British Touring Car Championship, and the likes of Colin Turkington and Gordon Shedden, amongst others, were very successful back in the 1990s and turn of the millennium. So the car that's behind the safety car is showing as being second in the race, which is the Colin Tester and James Rowling car. The car that is leading is right back of the shop, the yellow BMW, only just coming over the start-finish line now. So this might take a little bit of sorting out by race control. And the problem is, we're a minute away from the pit window opening. So how they're going to sort this out before the pit window, I don't know. And then, of course, if we are still safety car when the pit window opens, everybody will come into the pits anyway, and the order that they come out of the pits will change dramatically. So this gives a bit of a headache to race control, I would have thought, at this stage. Only once the telehandler is back in place and all the marshals are back over the wall, will the lights go out on the safety car. And it may well be a bit like we did with the Trackday Championship yesterday. We won't reorder the field, we won't make sure we've got the race leader behind, we'll just get going again to get things back underway. I do think that by the time we finish this lap, the pit window will be open, and as the safety car comes down the pit lane, it may well be that a raft of other drivers all follow it down the pit lane. So the BMW, the yellow BMW, right at the back of the shop, just coming through now, is the race leader and is pretty much a full lap ahead of everybody else. Pit window's now open, so the first 15 minutes of the race have gone. It will remain open for 15 minutes. All of the drivers can now decide as to when they want to dive for the pit lane. Right, okay, safety car's waving everybody by, so we are reordering the field. That's a good thing, pleased with that. It does now mean that because the pit window's open, half of these cars that are being waved by might dive for the pit lane anyway, which then means you've got to bunch all the field up again. So everybody gets waved by, bar the number 34 BMW, which should hold station behind the safety car. There we go, absolutely that's the case. And then for everybody else, they need to crack on with it. Right, how long is it taking the safety car to do a lap? Last time through, it took 2 minutes to do a lap behind the safety car, 2 minutes and a few seconds. So if you're smart about this, gun it, don't come into the pit lane, absolutely fly back round, catch the safety car again, keep your fingers crossed the safety car is going to do a further lap, get into the pits, conduct your 2-minute pit stop and get back out of the pits before the safety car comes around and puts you a lap down. That could be a tight strategy. It might not work, but it depends on the speed of the safety car, and it does now look as though the safety car has built up momentum and built up a little bit more speed again, so I think those that are in the pit lane are going to get trapped there, so maybe it wouldn't have worked, that strategy. Into the pit lane, okay. So yeah, I thought this would happen. The safety car waves everybody by so that it can get the race leader, Michael Rawlings, behind it. As soon as it gets Michael Rawlings behind it, pit window opens, Michael Rawlings comes into the pit lane. So now the problem for the safety car is, who is the race leader? It really depends who comes out of the pits now, closest to that minimum 2-minute pit stopper, who's going to be in the lead of the race. And you can see just how tight and difficult it is with 34 cars all trying to pit at the same time in the Donington Park pit lane, which isn't exactly a small pit lane anyway. but it does make it very, very tight indeed. So the safety car and race control will be wondering as to who they need to pick up, and it may well be that they don't for a second time try and resort the order or just let them go. Now we've still got a few cars that haven't pitted. The number 37 Honda opted not to pit, which is Semprini Racing. That is Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart. They did not come in to the pit lane. Also car number 143 did not come in, which is Trevor Hurrell in his Honda Integra. Sarah Hobson comes out of the pit lane. Wayne Cockrell, who she was doing battle with, follows her out. So the two Salikas are going to rejoin absolutely nose to tail with each other. You can see in the background the Martin and Rob Adams Mazda just coming out of the pit lane now. That's the most burgundy-esque car with the white roll cage to it, making its way out of the pit lane. Mazda behind also coming out as well. That's going to be Colin Wells, and then number 18 Mini I think is the next one thereafter that's just coming out of the pit lane. So safety car lights are off, so we are going to go back racing at the end of this one. Not all of the cars have conducted their mandatory pit stops as yet, so race leader in reality is the Honda Civic, the number 37 Honda Civic, which in theory shouldn't overtake before the start-finish line, but the car they was trying to get past was coming into the pit lane anyway, so matters not. Over the start-finish line, and it's the number 37 car that leads the way of Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart. Hasn't as yet dived into the pit lane. The car that's second is the light blue Honda that sits behind it, the number, light green Honda that sits behind it, number 143 car of Trevor Hurrell. So that is first and second position. So there is the light green car down through the Craner curves. Third at the moment will be 131, which is Howard Hunt in the Rover 45. Fourth is going to be the number 41 car, which is the car that had been going really well at the start of the race in the hands of David Chepchevsky, but that car has pitted, but the pit it came in was not its mandatory pit stop. It was before the pit window had opened, so he also is due a pit stop as well. And then we'll wait and see as to what everything else looks like, because the safety car coming out just as the window opened has changed the whole complexion of the race at this stage. So in theory, I think by the time we've cycled through it all, the car that should be leading the race may well be Michael Rawlings still, from the Porsche of Colin Tester stroke James Rowling. And then third should be, once we cycle through the pit stops, the number 39 car, which is going to be Paul McHugh. So pit stops still continuing. This car that's in the pit lane now is the number 55 car, which Tommy Valentine shares with Costa Krietsis. Tommy Valentine, Costa Krietsis have also both competed in the Enduro KA category, which will have a race here at Donington Park, another championship that's organised by, or series that's organised by MSVT. So Tommy leaves the pit lane, or Costa leaves the pit lane. We don't know the starting drivers rejoin. Out on circuit the battles continue as well, so Ben Jenkins at the wheel of his newer gen Renault Clio, fighting away with the Hills Motorsport Ginetta G20 there by the look of, or Ginetta G40 by the look of things, which will be Neil Bullen. Both trying to work their way through and past Robert Quantrell's Renault Clio. Robert Quantrell in the meantime coming under pressure from William Lynch in the Mini. Then it's Colin Wells that's next up, followed by the Adams family Mazda MX-5. So the Rover is in. The shape of that harking back to, of course, the likes of the British Touring Car Championship, in which they ran for a good number of years. The same shape of car, but of course it was the MG in the BTCC. So down through the Craner curves, Colin Wells gets a big wiggly moment on, and the Mazda's going to go into the gravel trap. Is it the bottom of the Craner curves? No, it just about gathers up the moment on the inside of the old hairpin, but lots of arm twirling to try and get it back under his spell. Eventually it broke away from him. The trip through the gravel, car comes out pointing roughly in the right direction, but has lost a chunk of time. So he had been running as the final place inside the top 20. That's not going to be the case anymore now, because at least 3 or 4 places would have been lost there, I would have thought. And we've still got a couple of cars that haven't pitted. There's no concern they haven't pitted, because there's still 8 minutes of the pit window open as yet. We're only just about to hit the halfway point of the race, and we've lost another one. And is that Tommy Valentine or Costa Krietsis we've lost into the gravel trap? The car had only just come out of the pit lane, and looking at the crash helmet, I think that is probably Costa Krietsis that's in the gravel trap there. Doesn't look like Tommy Valentine's crash helmet. So in the gravel it goes. Out of the gravel it will come at some point, but we may well have to go safety car again. And if that's the case, that will without question be the point at which the car that leads the race, number 37 Honda, comes in, the Semprini racing car that Phil Hart shares with Jeremy Evans. And in fact they do come into the pit lane. They come into the pit lane now, I think just before we potentially might need to go safety car. The car that is therefore in second place, Trevor Hurrell, he should, if he doesn't pick up the lead of the race. So there you can see the Semprini car in the background of the shot. Into the pit lane comes now for the second time the Dominic Chevsky car, and we've also now lost out on circuit. William Lynch at the wheel of his Mini has had something happen down through the Craner curves. So it looks as though his car is so far out of the way that he's probably pulled it there with a mechanical issue. But with the number 55 Ford Fiesta stuck in the gravel where it is at the Robert Chicane, little choice but to throw the safety car. So this ought to be the point then in which the light green Honda comes into the pit lane of Trevor Hurrell. I think once we've got Trevor Hurrell in the pit lane, that's everybody that we've cycled through, because say Semprini Racing came in, Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart's car. We also saw David Chipchevsky come into the pit lane. There is his BMW. So he's back into the pit lane. His second stop, because of course he lost lots of time earlier on. The only car that hasn't stopped now, or isn't in the process of doing its stop, is the number 143 Honda Civic, which is the light green car but with the black and orange flashes to it. That's the reason for the safety car. That stricken car of Tommy Valentine and Costa Krietsis in the gravel, going nowhere. No obviously signs of damage. I think it's just stopped before hitting the tyre stack on the inside. Safety car up at McLean's corner, and into the pits has come the race leader. So the final car that we were scheduled for a pit stop has finally come in. Still 5 minutes to go with the window, but no point staying out there when you're behind the safety car. Come in, get the 2-minute pit stop done on the safety car, and you're going to save yourself a whole raft of time. So pretty much everybody, I think, has pitted under the 2 safety cars that we've had. There might be the odd 1 or 2 that didn't quite get it right, but yeah, second safety car period has certainly helped those that hadn't pitted. So that was the car that had inherited the lead of the race, which is Trevor Hurrell's car. The team just taking the opportunity not just to adjust the tyre pressures, but just to re-torque the wheel to make sure that everything is tight on the Honda Civic Type R. And once they get where they need to be towards that 2-minute pit stop, they'll release the car, because it's not stationary for 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes from when it breaks the beam at pit lane entry to when it exits at pit lane exit end of the pit lane. That's 2 minutes in that pit lane area it has to be. So safety car going past the scene with the crocodile of cars behind it. Ford Fiesta being dragged back out of the gravel trap. Hopefully that will get fired back up and rejoin the race. Now, all is not well with the BMW. Yeah, that's not a standard pit stop, is it, when you've got somebody, whether it be David Chipchevsky or not, or another driver leaning in across the roll bars to the passenger footwell or the centre console to do something on it, or the transmission tunnel, whatever they're doing. But yeah, that's not a standard pit stop, and that car is already now starting to drop back down through the order. So we'll give you a full rundown of the order once the race gets back underway, because of course we've still got some cars that are only just in the process of concluding their pit stops. So next time when they come over the start-finish line, it will give us a better indication as to who is where. In theory, it ought to be Michael Rawlings in the number 34 BMW that retakes the lead of the race. What the rest of it then looks like, I simply don't know. There could also tell you Porsche has tumbled through the order. So that car that was in the hands, I'm sure it was Colin Tester to start with, who is well used to driving that car. James Rawlings has got less experience in it. That car is now lapping down in top position. respective class leaders in Class B, Class C and Class D. There is no Class A, if you're wondering, so it's just Classes B, Classes C and Classes D, which is all based on power to weight ratio. So Class B, the most powerful class, 151 to 175 brake horsepower per tonne. Class C, 126 to 150 brake horsepower per tonne. And Class D, up to 125 brake horsepower per tonne. Now the lights are still on the safety car, which suggests that we are not as yet quite clear to get the race back underway. We certainly haven't waved any cars by this time through to make sure we've got the race leader behind us. But as they come over the start and finish line on this lap, we'll get a better indication as to what the order looks like, because it may well have shuffled as a result of those late pit stops for others. So it is going to be the last car that pitted. It's worked. It's certainly worked for the car that started down in 11th position. Trevor Hurrell in the light green Honda has gained places, but leading the race is going to be number 34, which is Michael Rawlings, the wheel of his BMW. He will be leading by about 11 seconds, I think it will be, from the light green Honda of Trevor Hurrell. Third will be the number 37 Semprini Racing Honda, which will be Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart. Fourth will be the number 70 car, now in the hands of Justin Roberts, Nicole Drown having done all of the hard work in the early stages. Fifth will be the number 39 Honda, which is going to be Paul McHugh, and completing the top six will now be the number 12 car, which will be Louis Harvey and Oliver Richardson with the Pro-Am Racing Honda Civic. As for the class leaders, leading the race overall and leading Class B is Michael Rawlings. Second place and leading Class C is going to be car number 143, which is Trevor Hurrell, and our Class D leading car should be Robin Martin Adams at the wheel of the number 3 Mazda. Looks like we are reordering, so the safety car is waving people through to ensure that it's got that light green Honda behind it. Sorry, it's got the yellow BMW behind it, I should say, of Michael Rawlings. And we're almost there now, so I think there's maybe one car to wave through. That will come out to Michael Rawlings to say, stay where you are. And then hopefully, not on this lap, because all of those cars wave through, in theory need to catch the train again and the Crocodile. Pit window about to close in 20 seconds time. Matters not, largely irrelevant, because everybody has conducted their mandatory pit stops. And then once all of those cars get waved through, so the race leader is the yellow BMW. The car in second place is the light green Honda, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars between first and second place on the road. But between the second place Honda and the third place car, there is nothing. There will be nose to tail at this restart. So there's a light green Honda, which is going to be Trevor Hurrell, and right behind it is the blue Honda with the green flashes to it, which is the number 37 car of Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart. So for Michael Rawlings, this plays beautifully well into his hands, because when the race finally gets back underway, he'll be able to accelerate when he wants to. Once the safety car is pulled away from him, he can go for it and build an advantage. The cars that are nose to tail fighting over second and third won't be able to overtake any of the cars ahead of them. Oh, it looks as though that's retirement. So David Shipchevsky, the BMW, race that promised so much for the car that qualified 6th quickest, looks as though he's out of the race. So he'll be very disappointed with that. So he's been a front runner in this category for a good number of years. So safety car down at the old hairpin. We've had the best part of, I think at this stage, we are now up to, let's just have a quick look, how many laps have we had? We've had 11 laps of green, but we've had 7 laps now behind the safety car. The total safety car period of time is up to 17 minutes now of safety car. We've had only 14 minutes of green flag racing, so we've had more safety car than we have green flag, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll go green all of the way, and the drivers that have just taken over can get some racing in. We've just had a penalty flash up as well. The 1-lap penalty has just been awarded to car number 166, Richard Clark, who started off the back of the grid, and his pit stop was too short, so the 1-lap penalty is what he'll be getting. Lights are off on the safety car, so this is now for Michael Rawlings to decide as to when he wants to get things underway. He's so close to the safety car, he can't really accelerate until the safety car peels its way into the pit lane. But remember, all the cars behind him are lapped cars in reality, and the two Honda Civics in the background of the shot can't overtake until the start-finish line, so Michael Rawlings can get on with it. He knows he's got a nice buffer of lots of lapped cars between himself and the two Hondas that are fighting over second and third place. It's the Robert Martin Adams number 3 Mazda MX-5 doing battle with Colin Wells, who had that crazy spin down through the crane of curves and the older hairpin earlier on. And that will be for position as well. That will be for the lead of Class D, those two cars. So despite the fact that Colin Wells had the spin, the lead of Class D being fought out between the two Mazda MX-5 Mark IIIs. There's the light green Honda, so that will be Trevor Hurrell. The rest of the field all threading their way over the start-finish line at the moment. So of course it's bunched everybody up again, so the squabbles can continue. With 12 minutes to go. Big squeal of tyres suggests that something has happened, and I think it was a bit of a moment there potentially for the Rover of Howard Hunt, who was very slow coming off the corner. It was probably just a big wiggly moment that he gathered up as the tyres had lost a little bit of temperature under the safety car period, but we've still got just under 12 minutes of this race still to go. After here, the cars will head off for the next rounds of the championship. So we saw the Trackday Championship here earlier on today. This is Trackday trophies, and there's no championship points awarded. We've still got the two Toyota Celicas going at it as well, haven't we? Sarah Hobson and Wayne Cockrell have had pretty much a race-long battle. They were fighting for the final two places inside the top 10. Well, they're now running in 8th and 9th position. But if you look right behind, that's Cameron McLean, I think, that's behind at the wheel of his Renault Clio, fighting away. Citroen Saxo heading towards us, which is the George Wright and Simon Morris shared number 58 car. And that will be fighting away with the number 83 Mazda, which is the Mark II Mazda. Is it Mark II? Yes, it does look like the Mark II. Of Mike Fletcher and Alex Langdon. And they are fighting for position. That will be for 24th and 25th position. There's a few more cars that have been deemed as being too short on pit stops, as well as the number 25 Green Star Racing Ford Fiesta grinds to a halt on the exit of the Robert chicane. It's parked almost up towards the barriers, but ideally could do with being a little bit further along so they can get him even more out of harm's way. Other cars with too short of pit stops, I'm afraid number 63, the Ford Focus of Andy Burton, too short in the pit stops, and also the sister car to within the team, which is the Tommy Valentine and Costa Kritzis car that brought about the second safety car period because it went in the gravel. That has also picked up a 1-lap penalty for being too short in the pit stops. Right, squabbles, all for position as well. Semprini Racing under pressure. Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart's older shape Honda Civic now coming under the cosh again from Paul McHugh at the wheel of the newer one. This will be for 4th and 5th position, because Semprini Racing have already just lost one place to Justin Roberts at the wheel of the number 70 car that's gone through. So that now means that the number 70 car that Nicole Drought drove in the early stages of the race and is now in the hands of Justin Roberts is up to 3rd place overall. Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart's car down into 4th, but coming under pressure, as we say, from Paul McHugh, who's trying to work his way back through the order, and he's already done it. So the number 39 car, the newer shape Honda, goes through and is now able to start to put a bit of daylight between himself and the car that he's taken the position away from. James Rolling now, I think, behind the wheel of that Porsche. And it looks as though there's also Neil Bullen recovering from a spin at the wheel of the Hills Motorsport Ginetta G40. So we've got 9 minutes of the race to go. Ben Jenkins at the wheel of the Renault Clio is trying to keep at bay the car that he's just taken the place from, which will be the Ford Fiesta, the number 45 car. And that means that is place gain then for Ben Jenkins over Ben Curran. And they're now starting to get themselves amongst a bit of traffic that they need to work their way through and past, including that Citroen Saxo that is being shared by George Wright and Simon Morris, that's had to give second best to the Mazda that it was fighting with, which was the Mike Fletcher and Alec Langston car. So for the lead of the race, Mike Rawlings now leading by 9.6 seconds at the wheel of the number 34 BMW, but his last lap time was a 1:20:25.1. Now bearing in mind he was at the front of the queue when we got the race back underway, and therefore he shouldn't have too much traffic. That was a slow lap time from him, and the reason I'm picking up on it is because the car that was in second place, which is Justin Roberts, was 6 seconds a lap quicker, 1 minute 19.8. So was that a problem for the BMW? Is there a problem for the BMW? Because the number 70 Honda was substantively quicker on the last lap. All looks good with it as it comes down in towards the braking area for the Roberts chicane with 7.5 minutes remaining. The lead advantage has certainly been carved into over the course of that lap, and you can see in the background that Justin Roberts is on his way here. Does that, I don't think it sounds right, does it? It doesn't sound as crisp as it ought to do, that BMW now, and that was the best part of 10 seconds slower than its previous lap. There is a problem for the BMW, it's not firing on all cylinders, and through goes Justin Roberts to pick up the lead of the race. So I think Michael Rawlings is just trying to limp the car towards the checkered flag, but just sounds so flat, that car. It doesn't sound like a 6-cylinder engine as it's coming past you. It sounds as though it's probably down onto 3 or 4 cylinders at very best. So a change for the lead. And it's now Justin Roberts and Nicole Drought in their Honda that pick up the lead. Nicole having started, Justin having taken over the car in the mandatory pit stop window. And they are simply going to disappear up the road. Now second place very shortly ought to go in the direction of Trevor Hurrell in the light green Honda. So there goes the race leader. Where's the BMW? Is it still in second? No, it's not. It's dropped down into third. It's going to drop into fourth. It's going to drop into fifth by the look of things, because through has gone already Trevor Hurrell. Then the Jeremy Evans and Phil Hart car has gone through, and also Pro-Am Racing's Honda Civic of Louis Harvey and Oliver Richardson has gone through. So he was leading at the start of this lap. He's at the bare minimum down into fifth, and it could be sixth potentially on the road at least, because the number 166 car, I think, of Richard Clark should be able to weave his way through and ahead of the Beamer, and already has done. But Richard Clark in sixth place has got a 1 lap penalty that will get added at the end of this race. So whilst another car has on the road put him down a position, the car that's just gone through we know is going to be handed a penalty. So a good little fight going on for second, third and fourth at the moment. Trevor Hurrell qualified 11th quickest and is at the moment fighting away with the car that qualified 7th quickest. The respective lap time difference between the pair of them was about half a second between the two Hondas. And are we also going to see the Pro-Am Racing Renault Clio that had a good run in yesterday's Trackday Championship race try and get a move? And that's problems, and that's a big, I think, engine woe for Tommy Valentine and Costa Kritzis' car there. Lots and lots and lots of smoke. That's the car that went into the gravel trap earlier on, so it makes you wonder whether maybe there's a bit of damage having gone into the gravel trap, or whether it started to throw a belt on an oil pump or something like that. But that is, yeah, smoke rather than steam, isn't it? And it was disappearing fairly quickly. Could be head gasket.